Well, good morning. It's Saturday, the 11th of July, and today's Moravian reading is Luke chapter 8, verses 40 to 56. It's the story of two amazing healings. The healing of a woman who's been hemorrhaging blood for 12 years, and in fact the raising from the dead of Jairus' 12-year-old daughter. Amazing passage. And it starts in verse 40 with this interesting phrase. It says that when Jesus arrived, they welcomed him because they were expecting him. They welcomed him because they were expecting him. And what a challenge that is for us. You know, how many times, how often are we expectant of Jesus? How do we respond with that sense of welcome? Jesus, you're here. Today, Jesus, you're in my world. I welcome you because I'm expecting you to turn up. I'm expecting you to be present. In verse 43 in this passage, we read at the story of the woman who's been hemorrhaging blood for 12 years. And it is worth thinking about the significance of that, or what it means or must have meant for her. You see, in her society, to be hemorrhaging blood meant that she was unclean. She was an outcast. She wasn't allowed to be part of society. So for the whole 12 years, she had had to keep herself separate. Her own personal lockdown, if you like. You know, she wasn't allowed to attend any of the community points of connection. She wasn't allowed to weddings or birthdays or other celebrations and festivities. In the Old Covenant, we're told that if an unclean person touches a clean person, then the clean person becomes unclean. That's the power of uncleanness or of sin in the Old Covenant. But in the New Covenant, that's reversed. And now in the New Covenant, if someone unclean touches someone clean, it's the unclean person that's changed and made clean. There's a transformation that happens. And it just constantly reminds me what an amazingly powerful gospel we carry. That those who come into contact with Jesus are transformed into his likeness. The unclean become clean in the New Covenant. In verse 44, we read that she reached out and she touched the hem of his garment. This was probably the tassels on the bottom of his garment, and these were often referred to or related to the promises of God. This is a woman who reached out and touched the promises of God and was healed. She'd probably reached out and certainly reached out for doctor's help and all sorts of other help that she could over those 12 years. But when she reached out and touched the promises of God, she was healed and restored. You know, I feel slightly sorry for Jairus because he has a daughter at home who's on her deathbed. He is desperately concerned about her. And here is this woman holding up Jesus who he thinks will be able to do something about it. And yet I think it was really important that Jairus was present when this woman was healed. You see, he saw in that moment, he saw what faith in Jesus could accomplish. And that as he approached his own devastating news of the death of his daughter, he needed to hear that, he needed to see that, he needed to firsthand know from that woman's testimony of what faith in Jesus could accomplish. In verse 50, you know, Jairus has been given the news that his daughter has passed away. She's died. And Jesus' response in the Passion Translation, Jesus says this to Jairus. He says, "Do not yield to your fear." Jesus is effectively saying, don't give in, don't yield to fear, yield to faith. Don't say yes to fear, say the big yes to faith in Jesus. And that's such a challenge for us all the time, isn't it? We are confronted with challenges and issues of life, and we get a choice. Are we going to say yes to fear, or are we going to say yes to faith in Jesus? I wonder I could end today with reading a short passage of comparisons that David Guzik, in his commentary on this passage, has written down. And it's just a series of comparisons of Jairus' experience versus the woman's experience. He says this, he says, Jairus had 12 years of sunshine that were about to be extinguished. The woman had 12 years of agony that seemed hopeless to heal. Jairus was an important man, the ruler of the synagogue. The woman was a nobody. We don't even know her name. Jairus was probably wealthy because he was an important man. The woman was poor because she had spent all her money on doctors. Jairus came to Jesus publicly. The woman came to Jesus secretly. Jairus thought Jesus had to do a lot to heal his daughter. The woman thought all she needed to do was touch Jesus' garment. Jesus responded to the woman immediately, but Jesus responded to Jairus after a delay. Jairus' daughter was healed secretly. The woman was healed publicly. What an amazing God we have, who relates to each of us so uniquely with what we need. I pray today that you will know the goodness of God in your life, in whatever area you need to know it today. Amen.